you feeling today, Coach?
Doing great, man.
Well, I'm glad you're feeling great.
Yeah. How are you feeling, Coach?
I'm trying to fight a sickness, man.
Oh.
Kids, man, they just get you sick. They pay no bills. They eat all your food, and they get you sick. That's what they give you. That's what they give you in life, and occasionally they give you joy.
Occasionally, yeah.
How was your weekend, man?
Pretty solid. Had some great games to watch on the weekend. Had my own tournament on the weekend.
How did that go?
Not well. We lost both games. I mean, they were both close against solid competition, so I mean, can't really complain. But haven't been playing our best ball as of late, so got to bounce back this weekend.
It happens like that sometimes.
Well, you keep rolling, man. You look to the next weekend, man. You can't stay in the past. Yes,
that's what you tell them, Coach. We must forge ahead and try. We must forge ahead and hope that we can get better results next time. Are they practicing better? Are they still practicing lackadaisical?
No. Better now. That's why we played better last weekend. But
fair enough.
Yeah,
fair enough.
This week needs to be a good practice for sure.
All right, Coach. Are you ready to get started?
Let's do it, man. Let's get right into it.
All right, I'm gonna try to do my best today. Hopefully, I don't end up having to, get a little sneeze off or anything like that. Hopefully, it is what it is, though. If it happens, Coach.
Yep.
All right, as you guys know, how we get started is the halftime give and go. I don't have to get into the rules because you know how it goes, but let's start off at number 1 on the halftime give and go. Stephen Curry, and it's on me. Look, Steph, I know you're hurt. I know you're a little sad about the fact that you couldn't get a chance to potentially go after your 5th ring, and I do believe that you would have had a great chance of making that happen this playoffs had you not got hurt with the hamstring injury. But I have great news for you. The Golden State Warriors are going to get you a big time player. I don't know who it's going to be, but you will have help. And I see you being able to finish your career with 6 rings after that big time acquisition is done. All right, moving on to the next player on the halftime give and go. It's Damian Lillard. For you, Dame, it's going to be the opposite of Steph Curry. I'm sorry to tell you, you are about to be stuck in Milwaukee with potentially a rebuilding team. That team will be built around you. However, it may not include some of the powerhouse players that you have had next to you, as in Giannis, Brook Lopez, and Bobby Portis. It seems like Milwaukee may be on the cusp of blowing things up, and maybe that includes you and maybe it don't, but I do see you sticking around with Milwaukee. All right, Coach, on to you. WNBA had their opening weekend of games this past weekend. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's very refreshing to see. They're playing hard basketball, very gritty, just playing at fast pace. It's fun to watch. The Aces have been off to a little bit of a slow start. I think they're 1-1 right now.
Yeah.
The Minnesota Lynx look amazing right now. They've been playing really solid ball. Of course, we got the whole controversy that happened in that Fever Sky game, which we're not going to get into. There's plenty of media out there talking about the situation. We might reserve that for our own topic maybe next week or at some other point. But yeah, solid opening weekend for the WNBA.
All right. Aaron Gordon of the Denver Nuggets. What do you got to say about him, Coach?
Yeah, I mean, when he played his last couple of games in that series, just didn't look like himself. He was one of those X Factor guys, I said, along with Michael Porter Jr., that needed to show up for the Nuggets, and they just did not in the last couple of games, and that's why ultimately OKC was able to pull ahead and win that series. Though I do think if they were able to play at a high level and actually execute what they had to do, it would have been the Nuggets series right there.
All right. Well, sticking on the Denver Nuggets, Nikola Jokic, what's your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, he's got to. We got to see a Jokic that plays stronger next year. I'm getting sick and tired of watching him flop every other play. When he catches the ball, I don't care if you're getting smacked. You have a 6'6" Alex Caruso guarding you that you're about 100 pounds heavier than him. use your body, man. Like, you get praised as, one of those old style big men, right? Like, you could post up, you could use your post hooks. Why didn't he use them?
I don't know. That's a good question. But sticking on to basketball and moving on to the other team that won that series against the Nuggets, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Look, man, you are completely doing your thing. You are balling. I do believe that you will be awarded the regular season MVP award. If you get past the Minnesota Timberwolves, then you'll probably most likely be the Western Conference MVP. And I am looking forward to seeing the legacy of Shai grow bigger and bigger and brighter. But as of right now, you did your thing against the Denver Nuggets, and let's see if you can take care of Ant-Man and the Minnesota Timberwolves next. All right, that has been the halftime give and go. I want to remind everyone to follow and subscribe to our YouTube at the Halftime Pod. We see that you are watching all of our shorts, all of our clips, all of our videos. Some of you are even commenting and going all crazy in the comment section. Some of you are even liking all of our videos and clips, but what you're not doing is the last bit, which is subscribing to the channel. We need those subscriptions. We need you subscribing. So we love and appreciate that you rock with our content and that you rock with me and Coach, but we need you to click that subscribe button so that way any and everything that we do, you can get notified about it. All right. Moving on. You ready for our game, Coach?
Let's do it, man.
Are you ready for our game?
Let's do it.
All right, let's play our game. As always, you know how it goes. Our favorite game, who's cooking and who should stay the out the kitchen. Number one on who's cooking. The New York Knicks. It breaks my heart to have to give y'all some love because you guys have some of the worst fans in NBA history. Out here smacking people with garbage cans, all because they want to walk the New York streets with an Indiana Pacers jersey. Look, I get it. New York has not been successful in the NBA playoffs in a long time. You guys haven't won a championship since the 70s. And now you're probably going to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time since the late 90s. So I understand. You're excited. There's a lot of hysteria, a lot of delusion from a lot of you New York fans, but I get it. You're excited. You're excited. And I do think you guys have a reason to be excited. This New York team is very, very impressive. Multiple times they have come back from 20-point deficits. They play well on defense. They have a understandably not necessarily high-powered offense, but it's an effective one. Jalen Brunson is the clutch player of the year, so you know you can count on him in the fourth quarter. OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges have shown that they can be lockdown wing defenders. And if Cat gets healthy and his hand gets better, then you know you have a 20 to about 27 point per game center who can also shoot over about 42% from the three-point line. So they have all the ingredients technically to be a finals berth NBA team and potentially a championship team. So I get it. But they're running into the Pacers, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that this is going to test them and probably expose them in ways that they didn't see coming. But what are your thoughts about the New York Knicks?
Yeah, I mean, this whole playoffs, they've looked like a very well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
They're firing on all cylinders, and what better time to do it than right now?
Yeah.
In the NBA playoffs, especially Jalen Brunson. He's putting on performances every night, and Mikal Bridges has really stepped up.
Yes, he has.
He was kind of one of the bigger question marks when they did make that trade, and he was kind of struggling a little bit in the regular season. We all saw that viral clip where they were trying to change his jump shot, and that thing looked ugly and slow as molasses, but he's back to shooting how he regularly shoots, and man, that thing is going in at a very high level. OG Anunoby has been absolutely sensational for them. Cat has kind of been a letdown, but of course he's got the hand injury battling that, but we know what he could do when he's fully healthy. And I mean, just everybody else around. Josh Hart is just a scrapper. Deuce McBride off the bench seems like he doesn't miss when he comes into the game. He stays ready. I mean, that New York Knicks team is playing a really high level of basketball. My only concern going into this series is we know Indiana's a fast-paced team, and we know these New York Knicks starters have played a lot of minutes in these first two rounds because of Tom Thibodeau's rotations, right?
Yes.
So, will the New York Knicks show up and be burnt out? Quite possibly. They might show a little bit of fatigue going into this Eastern Conference final against a young and run and gun style Indiana Pacers, but they've been playing great ball as of late, so I cannot knock them.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to who else is cooking. And this is the Oklahoma City Thunder basketball team. Look at here. We got to show some Thunder love. They are surprisingly going to set a precedent for what it looks like to build a team from the ground up and do it successfully, right? Getting draft picks, stocking them up, using your scouting department, trading for the right young pieces, drafting the right young pieces, then developing them, going out and getting the right veteran pieces to surround those young guys. And it looks like the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to end up being a team that is completely viable for winning the championship this year, and not just winning it this year, potentially being in contention for being a back-to-back organization finals winner, or even being a dynasty. They have the making of that because they're all so young. They play really well together, and they play hard for one another, and they're good as hell on defense. I think the only thing that I'm concerned about with Oklahoma City is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's ability to get to the foul line. If that starts to dissipate as the rest of this playoffs goes, because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of coaches and a lot of organizations who are complaining to the NBA front office about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's ability to get to the free throw line on calls that they don't feel he should be getting. If that continues or it gets to a point where referees are swallowing the whistle, I am concerned that some of SGA's effectiveness can be taken away, which could give the Thunder some trouble in being able to make this run. But if the trend continues, I honestly do not believe that anybody in the West, as of technically constructed right now, has any chance of beating the Thunder going forward, except maybe San Antonio if they're able to add a big key piece in this free agency, which a lot of people believe that can happen as well, because San Antonio is also a very young team when you look at De'Aaron, Vassell, Keon Johnson, and obviously Wemby. They have a very nice young core, so if they can get them a proven veteran to mix and mingle with them, they could be the team that can challenge the Thunder going forward. But that is my thoughts about the Oklahoma City Thunder. How about you, Coach?
No, I absolutely agree with you. You know, this team has really become the blueprint for NBA teams to come, as far as rebuilding and kind of, you know, we saw what the team was in the early 2010s with KD and Russ. Then Russell Westbrook had his whole MVP run, averaging triple doubles, and then they blew it up. Right, yep. They traded him away, traded other pieces away. Guys retired, and they were left with nothing. They were kind of the rut of the NBA for a little while, and then they made the right trades, stuck with their draft picks, and you know this is the result of it, and this is the correct way to do it. But I do agree with you. Like, this team is so well built, not just with the young players that they've drafted and developed, but the veterans that they do have on the roster just so perfectly fit the team, and are not old veterans either, right? They're veterans of the league, but still have a decent amount of miles to still put on the to still put on the odometer. And I think it's going to be real interesting to see in years come, like, can they sustain this play? We all thought they were at least going to make the Western Conference Finals last year. It was a little bit of a letdown, but I think for years to come, this is going to be a team kind of how Denver had their little run for the past 5 years. I think OKC can do that, plus some more, if they could keep the guys on the team.
I totally agree. All right, moving on to our favorite part of the game. Who should stay the fuck out the kitchen? And number one on that is Jaylen Brown of the Boston Celtics. Look, Jaylen, I believe in you. I think you're a great player. I think you're a phenomenal guard in the NBA. However, I think you had a chance to create your own legacy had you been able to push at least this series with New York to a game 7 back home in Boston to give your team a fighting chance to make an upset happen. And you did not accomplish that. Now, what I hate about sports a lot is when you lose and then all of a sudden all of the information to give, maybe not an excuse for losing, but reasoning for losing, and I hate that. So you lose, and it turns out that you were battling this injury and all of this. It's like, doesn't matter at this point to even disclose that information. To me, it doesn't. You lost. Take your L. Just say the other team beat you, and that's just what it is. And then just walk away from the situation and go off in the sunset and rehab and recover on your own. You don't have to tell the world like, well, had I been healthy, maybe things would have been. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at this point. You lost, so just let it be. Just give the other team credit. I also want to say this. Boston has a lot of things to consider. And Jaylen Brown, I'm sorry to tell you that there's a strong chance you could be on your way out of Boston. You may have played your last season with the Boston Celtics, and I'm not sure exactly where that will land you. But that, to me, looks like what is headed in your future. That Boston will no longer be needing your services, and you will be on the trade block because they have to break this team up a little bit. They're too expensive between Kristaps, Jalen, Jason, Drew Holiday, and Derek White. They're way too expensive. Their starting lineup is probably the most expensive starting lineup in all of the NBA. And I don't believe that the ownership group for the Boston Celtics is willing to continue to pay the luxury tax that they're paying to keep this team together, especially if it's not a guarantee that they're going to win championships. Your thoughts on Jaylen Brown, Coach?
Yeah, the guy is an NBA superstar and he still doesn't have a left hand. That's kind of the joke I like to make with one of my guys, Chris. He's a big Jaylen Brown fan, but I've been trying to tell him that throughout that whole series he was the really big letdown for Boston. Jason Tatum, when he was healthy and he was playing, was balling. Like, he was playing great ball, and I think the pieces around him could have absolutely done better, but I think Jaylen Brown needed to step it up a lot, and I do agree with you. I think he definitely might have played his last game as a Boston Celtic. This team just does not have the financial stability and capabilities of paying these guys and continue to pay the luxury tax over the second apron, which we know is going to hit, I believe, after this next season. Like, they're supposed to raise the tax for that second apron or something. So more teams are going to be inclined to stay below that second apron. I think Boston is one of those organizations, considering they also do have like a new ownership group that I think just took over this year. So I'm sure they're going to try to get things back into the at least onto the green side, because I'm sure they're pretty far into the red at the moment.
Yeah, that is exactly where I stand with it. I hope I'm wrong, because it would be nice to see Jalen and Jason keep playing
think they're
together.
a great combo.
They're a great duo.
Yeah.
So I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't see a world where this entire, obviously I know that entire starting five won't be back next year, but I don't see a world where, if you're trying to maximize your ability to still win, I don't know if trading Drew Holiday and or Derek White is going to get you what you need to continue to win championships.
Not only that, but paying two players $60 million a year and still trying to pay other guys to surround them. So that's a very tall task.
That is. All right, moving on to who else should stay the fuck out the kitchen. It is very similar to Jaylen Brown, and that situation is Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon. I want to give him credit because he talked about how he played. He talked about how he played this season, amidst the loss of his brother, and how that was a big thing for him, being able to actually, play basketball without having his brother in the stands. But he did not play his best basketball in this series. And he's another guy who, once the series is over with and you lost, now we're chirping about, well, maybe we shouldn't be playing so many games throughout the regular season, and or the playoffs should be spaced out a little bit more so that it's not such a fast turnaround between games. And also he was suffering from an injury, and it's just like, dude, just say I lost. We got beat by the quote unquote better team this time around. We wasn't prepared to beat this team. They came with a great game plan. Jokic was being defended really well by Caruso. That hampered our ability to get into our offensive sets and do what we do best, offer the motion off of Jokic at the high post. Just say that. Just say that. Don't go, well, if the NBA changes how long in between games and different things like that, we would have had a fighting chance and you would have seen the real better team, essentially is what you're saying, would have won that series. It's like, dude, no, we're not changing rules. We're not lessening games. Why don't you just be in better basketball shape? Why don't you just take care of your body better? Why don't you just do the things as a millionaire athlete that is expected of you in order to make sure that come the playoffs, you're ready and prepared to be as best as you can. Everybody's fighting injuries at this time in the playoffs. We all know that. Nobody is 100% healthy. So with that being said, what is an extra couple games in between or a couple days in between each game going to do? Okay, I'll say, let's say you get a flight, you get your flight day, and then you get a rest day. Is that going to help you drop 30 points? I don't know. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I'm not going to sit here and say it won't do it, but Aaron Gordon, you're not Michael Jordan. So I don't think that you're going to go out there because you had a flight day and a rest day and average 27 points per game. That hasn't really been you your entire career. So I don't know what you're looking for, and I don't know if this is just a way to just kind of say, like, we were really the team that's what was supposed to win, but because of the rules and the way the playoffs are set up and how many games we had to play and being tired, those type of things contributed to the better team not actually winning the series. It's like, we're not doing that, man. We're not changing rules. We're not moving things around. You lost. Just say you lost and suck it up like a man.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Just sounds like a whole bunch of complaints. It is the NBA playoffs. Everybody's dealing with the same things every day. Whether it's muscle cramps, whether it's soreness, whether it's actual sprains, or in your fingers, and your knees, and your shins, somewhere, like, everybody's got some type of pain they're going through. And I would disagree with Aaron Gordon on what he's saying, like, oh, the better team, lost this series because of yada, yada, yada. I feel like the better team is the one that could season and go through all of these things and actually be able to play through, injuries and play through tough times and actually show resiliency. And that's what OKC has been able to do so far. Like, a lot of these guys have gotten banged up. Of course, they're getting to the foul line, especially Shea, but he is taking some falls having to do that, right? So it's not like he's not banged up either, including all these other guys like Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein and the big guys. But yeah, it just sounds like a whole bunch of excuses and just trying to complain and find essentially just point the blame somewhere else instead of just pointing it right back at yourself.
Yeah, I 100% agree. All right, that has been our game of who's cooking and who should stay the fuck out the kitchen. As always, I want to remind you guys to please follow me and follow Coach. We have our own individual things that we do. You can catch some of us posting different highlights of different parts of the show, maybe additional clips that may not necessarily make our main page, as well as being able to follow Coach in real time with his AAU club and see how different things are going. Eventually, we will be linking up to kind of give you highlights of how our high school season in the summer is shaping up, certain things that we got going on and that we're trying to accomplish prior to our high school season starting, because me and Coach, we coach together at the high school level. So yeah, you can follow me at Coach M_got it, and you can follow Coach at Coach_KD41. Again, you can follow me, Coach Malcolm, at Coach M_got it, and you can follow Coach Conrad at Coach_KD41. All right, Coach, are you ready to get into what? Are you ready to get into it?
Let's go, man. Let's do it.
The halftime report. Yeah. All right. All right, let's dive into this a little bit more, Coach. Earlier, before we started the show, Coach wanted to air some grievances about a certain player. So I'm going to let him go first on this topic. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the Oklahoma City Thunder. They dominate the Denver Nuggets, and essentially he dominated Jokic. Both of them pretty much were kind of going mano to mano for their respective teams. If one had to drop 30, the other one had to drop 30. If one had 40 this game, the other one had close to 40 the next game. And we see what the result was of that series, a 7-game series. OKC put it to bed in that game 7, completely blew them out. And they are now playing in the Western Conference Finals against the Minnesota Timberwolves, which, by the way, yesterday was the first game, and OKC won that game. So you were sharing some wonderful thoughts about your feelings on SGA. Would you like to tell the people what you think of him?
Of course. No doubt about it. I think he's an all-world athlete. I think he's a great basketball player. I think he could score at will. I think it's phenomenal how he could play at his own pace, especially at the NBA level. You know, it's something we preach to our high school and college athletes. To play at your own speed, don't let the defense speed you up. But for Shai to be able to do that at the highest level of basketball there is in the world, speaks levels to how great he really is.
Yes.
I do have one reservation about SGA though. In his play style, I just don't like the foul baiting. I don't like the way he tries to look for contact just to get to the foul line.
Okay.
I think game 1 against Minnesota was a prime example. Like, the guy had 7 free throws in 6 minutes. I mean, Doris Burke even called him a free throw merchant while he was shooting his 7th free throw. Like, I mean, NBA Twitter, like, I'm sure a lot of you guys watching and that are on the clip, seen it on either Instagram, YouTube, or TikTok, know about NBA Twitter. We know what they say about this guy. You know, we see the picture of him just smiling, after they lost game 1 or something and that game winner. People are using that as a meme now, saying, "Oh yeah, he got 7 free throws in 6 minutes." Like, that's why he's smiling his ass off, because he knows he's going to get those fouls. I don't hate the fact that he's trying to get to the foul line, because we've seen guys do it before, like Jimmy Butler and DeMar DeRozan, and of course they've had success with it. But and of course James Harden when he was in his prime in Houston. I could point to SGA, essentially, this whole situation that's going on with him, almost directly to kind of how it was with James Harden in Houston. It's like he's not even trying to just score the basketball certain plays. He's just looking to get to the foul line. And it's very, very frustrating as an NBA fan, but also as a basketball coach, just to see somebody playing the game like that. Because I think, if anything, it's going to encourage some of our athletes at the lower levels that watch NBA basketball, because we know they don't like to watch college ball. They like to watch the NBA, which I don't blame them. I did too. But it's going to encourage them to try some of the same things, and I just don't think it's good for the game. It's very unorthodox. It's not fluid. It doesn't come through the flow of the game. Like, I'm not a fan of that foul baiting stuff. And, this is not to knock him and knock his ability to get to the foul line, because, of course, he's doing it at a very high level. And even without, his free throws last game, if you gave all of his made free throws to Minnesota, OKC still wins. You know what I mean? So it's like, you can't necessarily complain about that. It's frustrating to see it happen throughout the whole course of the season. And I just really hope the NBA does put their foot down a little bit. Not necessarily this year. I want to see it next year. Like, let's let this season play out how it's been playing out. Let's not try to change something on the fly just because it's popular in conversation. Mm-hmm. Let's do it next year. Let's see how Shai could do next year, because I think he's still going to score the ball at a high level, and it's going to be even better to watch next year.
All right, you feel better now?
I mean, I felt good about it regardless, but
no, I won't say I agree with you, like, 100%. I understand your frustration with it. You want to see basketball purists love when the game can be orchestrated and allowed to just kind of play itself out organically, right? And that's always a beautiful thing to watch. However, we are watching a product that has rules and different things to it that can allow players to manipulate angles, manipulate looks. Are we upset that the player is smart enough to figure that out, or are you upset that the referees are allowing that to happen?
Are you asking me?
I mean, it's kind of. I mean, yes, rhetorical? In a way, it's kind of rhetorical because the way that I look at it, I'm phrasing it to say like, it's not really his doing. It's not his fault.
Right, which, I mean, if
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I could give you my answer on that. It's not that, like, I'm not, again, knocking Shea for just taking advantage of the rule book. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, of course, some fouls look absolutely insane that shouldn't be called at times, like the Jaden McDaniels, in my opinion, that shouldn't have been a foul. But, again, it's at the end of the day, who's making the calls? The NBA referees, right? Shea can't do nothing about it that he's getting the foul calls. He's playing his game, that how he knows how to play it, you know what I mean? And how he's effective. So, you can't necessarily knock him for just doing what's, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean? No. And until they start not calling the calls, I would keep doing it too. You know what I mean? I don't care what the media says.
And I think it's just a product of him being smarter than the other guys who are out there on the floor. He just knows how to get contact. He knows how to find the contact, whether he is personally going into it himself or if he just knows how to slow down and play at a certain pace that's so unorthodox that guys don't really know how to keep up, because a lot of the times it's really his pace of play that allows him to get contact, because guys are thinking that he's going to accelerate and he doesn't accelerate when they think he's going to accelerate. And then when they think he's not accelerating, then he accelerates, and now they're playing catch up. So a lot of times it's just his unorthodox pace that allows him to get these advantages against defenders. So I think what really needs to happen is that you need better defenders who watch more film and will really put the time in to understand exactly how this guy gets to the free throw line. What is it that he does outside of just engaging in contact and forcing the issue? Outside of those things, what is it that he does quirky, or his anticipation, acceleration when he goes into a certain ball handle? Is it tween, right, left, and then he accelerates, or is it tween, left, hesitation to the right, and then he has, like, whatever it is that you have to pay attention to, because every basketball player has a rhythm. Every basketball player has a certain package that they go to kind of get themselves in shot position, whether it's off the dribble. Especially if it's off the dribble, they have a package or a certain litany of moves that they will do to try to get them into a certain shot situation on the floor that they felt like they've practiced this over and over again, that it's muscle memory.
I'm actually really glad you brought that up, because I just wanted to know, like, I feel like the NBA defenders and just the NBA as a whole, I feel like the film that's being watched, and I don't know if it's just me yapping at this point, but like just me just observing how players are guarding other players, it feels like we're at an all-time low of guys actually watching film to try to see how to stop a guy.
Yeah, I mean,
not how it used to be. Like, when people used to guard whoever, like if it was Jordan watching film on Clyde Drexler, He knew what he was gonna do. You know what I mean? And
he would he would specifically say, I'm gonna take this, and this away, and if he can beat me doing X, Y, and Z, then cool.
Even Kobe, like he mentioned, like a lot of the stuff today is almost accidental basketball. Like like how it's driving kick, or the guys defending are just taking what's in front of them instead of just playing to a scheme. Like there's no defensive scheme anymore, and when we see teams implement them, they usually look pretty damn good on game day.
When they try. I mean, OKC had a scheme against the Denver Nuggets with Jokic, and putting Alex Caruso on Jokic was absolutely a very intelligent and smart thing, because what it basically did was Jokic plays like a guard. He's a center, but he plays like a guard a lot of the times. And so essentially you put a guard on him to take away his foot speed, which is what he uses against most centers. He uses his foot speeds and his ability to leverage his body for angles against centers. But against a guard, he can't leverage those angles as much, because if he tries to overly push it, he'll get charge calls because it'll look like he's trying to bulldoze his way to the basket. And so it forced him to kind of play away from the basket, and even when he tried to post up, they would send the double, and he would do the smart thing by kicking it out. But now you got guys being able to rotate the way that they're supposed to do, close out strong, and either guys are making shots or they don't. So it limits the effectiveness of Jokic because now you have to depend on other guys making shots contested. And that's essentially the only way you can beat a Jokic team. You can't stop Jokic by yourself, and you can't stop him from scoring, but you turn him into a passer as much as you can and then contest the shooters. And hopefully through the contesting of the shooters, which is what OKC was able to do, you lower the percentage of them making these shots, which gives you a chance to win. But
make somebody else beat you.
Yeah, but I don't think I agree with you. I don't know if there's good film being watched from quote unquote top defenders in the league, or even just anybody that is planning to be, obviously playing defense on basketball. It's like, I don't know if they're watching it to say, okay, I have to take this, and this away from this player, because if I take this, and this, it at least puts them in a situation where they have to go deeper into their bag that they may not necessarily be comfortable with. Like, I don't know how many times you got to watch Jason Tatum do that left step, that left side step into a 3-point shot. Like, I don't know how many times people got to watch him do that to know he's going to do it. He's going to do it. So when you see him get into his tween, jump to his left side. So that way at least it makes him a little uncomfortable on that shot. So now he has to fade it a little bit more to get it off.
You throw him off his rhythm,
Yeah, because you took away a little bit of that natural space that he normally gets. But, it is what it is. Like, some guys, it feels like study, like the Carusos of the world. Who else is a great defender in the NBA right now? It used to be Kawhi, but he's much older now. DeJounte Murray, when he's healthy. It's just certain guys that, it feels like they put a little bit more work in on that side of the film to understand exactly how they can be effective. But these are also guys that you consider, for the most part, role players. So they have to do their part in that capacity. All right, moving on from talking about OKC and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who, by the way, I believe has solidified the MVP. Let's talk about a former MVP and former NBA champion who is in a situation where for many it seems like he might be a little disgruntled and ready to move on to the next chapter of his basketball professional career. And that is Giannis Antetokounmpo, who has been all over Twitter just bloviating about how much he loves Steph Curry's shooting, and that he's one of the best players in the NBA, and that if he wanted to put together a starting five, Steph Curry would be his point guard, and that Damian Lillard is also a great shooter, but Steph is just one of the greatest shooters of all time. Now, sometimes you just want to leverage your organization just to, let them know, do something, figure this out. I want to win. Then other times you might just really be saying, this is a team that I want to go to. So let's figure this out. Let's facilitate this. Milwaukee is planning to meet with Giannis, I think, this week, or maybe they already have. I'm not sure. I know I saw that as an ESPN alert that Milwaukee was planning to meet with Giannis to get a final confirmation on what he wanted or where his mindset was with the team going forward. But based upon all the information that we're seeing from his social media accounts, it seems like Giannis is ready to move on from Milwaukee. He's already delivered them a championship. So similar to how Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, formerly known as Lou Alcindor. Thought I wasn't going to remember
that.
There you go. Formerly known as Lou Alcindor before he changed his name to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He won the championship for Milwaukee, got them a chip with, I think, Oscar Robertson at the time. And then, he became a Los Angeles Laker, and the rest is history for his career. Giannis has done could be on the same trajectory. Look, I brought y'all a championship in a small market. Now it's time for me to move on to potentially a greater market and help with this international push, which is something that I've been saying is an agenda for the NBA, that they want their international superstars in bigger markets because the NBA is trying to become more global and they plan to create an NBA European League. So if you want to make that league successful and you want to get more hype around it, then you have to use your present day European international players and stars and put them in markets that are branded greater and bigger so that you can show a little like a token of appreciation to the European fan base and say, look, we got Giannis in Golden State. You got Luka in LA. Maybe you end up having Jokic in LA. Who knows? They're calling for a center and saying that they need that. And Luka and Jokic would be a very interesting pairing together. So with that being said, what are your thoughts about Giannis and his Twitter fingers?
Yeah, I mean it's been fun to watch. Like I've been tuning in and seeing some of the responses, and I do like that he's kind of just engaging in a Q&A. I mean, it's kind of like what Kevin Durant does every other week.
Yeah.
Of course, Kevin Durant ends up in more arguments because he likes to use his hot takes, and people aren't necessarily fans of Kevin Durant for what he's done in the past and whatnot. But I mean, with Giannis, like, I think this was a healthy interaction. I think it was an entertaining one as well. Like, I did find it very interesting, you know, that all of the Steph Curry commentary that there was on Giannis and just kind of viewing it, spoke how he viewed, you know what I mean? And
do you think there's any merit to it, or do you think?
No, I think there definitely is.
Or do you think he's just having fun?
No, I think it's both. I think there's some merit, and I think he's also just having fun. Like I think to a certain extent, like he's like, well, you know, I wouldn't mind going to Golden State and being with Steph Curry, you know, for the last couple of years of his career, and you know, let's see if I could win another one, and you know, potentially go on a little run here myself, and then stay here long term and get paid, and being able to, you know, live over there
in California,
in Cali, right? So I mean, be in a bigger market, get more national television time and whatnot. But at the same time, I'm sure he's just having fun doing it. Like, he's just kind of engaging in conversations. He's probably just bored one day. You know what he likes to do on those Instagram lives? Like, he had he had that red button. I forget what it from his girlfriend. He got it as a present. We all know what I'm talking about there. He's just a guy that likes to have fun. And I mean, as far as where I think he could actually end up, I don't think he's a Milwaukee Buck next year. I think he doesn't ultimately get traded. Is it Golden State? I don't think so. I think that trade is just going to be really hard for Milwaukee to accept. I don't necessarily think that.
Why do you think it's going to be hard?
I don't think they're going to be content with what they're going to get back from Golden State. Like, I don't know if they're necessarily fans of guys like Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga. I mean,
and Draymond Green.
But every team has their own reservations about Kuminga and Moses Moody and the young talent over there. So, I mean, and I think Milwaukee's one of those teams that they just aren't sure on what Kuminga could possibly be.
All right, hold on. Let's do this real fast.
Yeah.
What are the teams that you think he could potentially go to?
I think he goes to Texas. I think he mentioned that he would like to play somewhere where there's a low income tax, and or we know Texas doesn't have income tax, and I think he could ultimately end up in two places. I think he could either go to San Antonio and go be with Wemby, or he could end up in Dallas and they trade that number 1 pick.
So I think Dallas is off the table. I think they want Cooper Flag for marketing purposes.
Yeah, but I do see a world where Nico Harrison is also he's a madman. We know he's a madman.
Yeah, but he can't afford to get more death threats. So I think Cooper goes to Dallas.
But would that be a death threat? I don't think so. I think
it would because they want Cooper. The fan base wants Cooper for more reasons than
I don't think they would complain about getting Giannis.
I think they would because I think it's bigger than the player. I think it's more so about relatability from the fan base. So I think they want Cooper for more so identity purposes.
Okay. I mean, I've seen and I've heard multiple guys in the media as well also mention that, like, Giannis to Dallas is a real possibility.
No, I'm not saying it's not. I just think that they will eventually just pick Cooper.
Okay.
I think the sleeper team in Texas is actually Houston. I think Houston has a chance to get Giannis as well. The only thing about it is I can't say that what you get from Houston or even Dallas, I can't say that what you get from Houston or Dallas is better than what you can get from Golden State. Now, pick-wise, obviously you get better picks you get a better pick from Dallas, right? You can get multiple picks from San Antonio. So the picks come from San Antonio and Dallas. Houston and Golden State, you can argue and say has the better younger talent.
Right.
You can-
Because they're already in the league, established,
Yeah.
whatnot. And
Like from San Antonio, you'll probably end up having to give the number 2 and maybe even the number 14 because I might play hardball if I'm Milwaukee
Probably.
and say I want both of those. So you give them the 2 and 14 and you're not trading De'Aaron Fox because that just makes no sense if you're in Milwaukee. You don't need that. So now you're looking at probably giving up what? Devin Vassell and like a Keon Johnson or something like that with the number 2 and the number 14 for Giannis. I don't know if Milwaukee looks at that and says that's enough for Giannis. I don't know if they do that. Same thing with Dallas. What are you giving up to get Giannis if you're Dallas? I mean, that might include what? PJ Washington. Are you giving up Klay Thompson? Maybe if you're Dallas, you give up Klay Thompson. But at that point, if you give up Klay, where's your shooting? Where's your outside shooting by getting Giannis? Now you're looking at a very tight and compacted team with Giannis and Anthony Davis when you waited on Kyrie to come back from January because your outside shooting could be a little limited without Klay Thompson. So I think that move is a little probably not going to happen, or you got to figure some things out of free agency. Houston and Golden State and arguably maybe Miami, I think, provides you some of your best young talent. And I think as a quiet sleeper, the Chicago Bulls can offer you some of your better young talent for teams that have young players that they might be willing to move. The thing about Chicago is you're nowhere ready for Giannis to come to Chicago just yet because you don't have the pieces around to make it competitive.
Yeah.
Houston, you're looking at giving up Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and maybe even Alperen. According to what I've been reading, they're willing to give up Alperen Şengün to get Giannis.
That'd be interesting.
Now, that would be interesting because at that point, who's playing your center position?
Right.
So now you would have to figure that situation out. So I think there is a world where a Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga on a new deal, contract, or whatever that's going to be, mixed in with a Draymond Green to Milwaukee and whatever few picks that they have could end up being a great deal for the Milwaukee Bucks because you get 2 young players, one that is absolutely a stud in Jonathan Kuminga that's yet to be unearthed. He's a diamond literally in the complete rough or around Steve Kerr. You got Moses Moody, who's a great 3-and-D young player that you can develop alongside Damian Lillard, who doesn't need the ball like CJ McCollum did, but he can be there to knock down shots and defend. And then you have Draymond Green, who will be the steady offensive playmaker alongside Dame, who can pretty much turn the Milwaukee Bucks to a play style that's similar to what Golden State is right now, because Dame and Moses can still go around, come off screens and shoot. Dame doesn't necessarily always have to have the ball, and he can come off pin downs and put the ball up and shoot and stuff like that. So you get some similar elements, and then if you're still keeping Brook Lopez, that's not the worst situation to have. Damian Lillard, Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, Draymond Green, and Brook Lopez, and you still got Bobby Portis and Beauchamp and a couple more people coming off the bench. That doesn't become a bad team.
Right,
you know what I mean? It's still a competitive team. So I think there is a world where it can work. I don't think it is as far-fetched as people believe, but I think people are just looking at Golden State and saying, not again.
Yeah.
I think that's really what it really is for most people.
Yeah.
Because if you get Giannis with Steph and you're able to keep Jimmy Butler there,
that'd be tough. That'd be real tough, man. Real tough team to take out. Real tough team to guard.
That'd be, yeah.
And a good defensive team as well.
Yes, that would be a nightmare of a team to deal with. All right.
Let's get a quick show break. I gotta go piss.
Oh, you gotta be all right. All right, you do what you gotta do.
Oh my god.
Well, as we wait for Conrad to get back, I still want to remind you guys to follow us at the Halftime Pod on YouTube. Just to go back to that Giannis conversation while Conrad is gone, I do want to say with the Giannis situation, I think this has been a long time coming for Milwaukee. And a part of me, as a spectator of watching what they've been doing, I think that they have planned for the longest of time that Giannis was going to leave. And I think that they have played this out very smartly by being able to get a Damian Lillard to try to kind of patch up the loss of losing somebody like Giannis, still able to keep a superstar. Now, I think the beautiful thing about Milwaukee right now is that if they lose Giannis, they can decide to just blow this team completely up, and that will leave them in a position where they could have a remake team after getting pieces and picks back for trading Dame, for trading Giannis, for trading Brook, for trading Bobby Porter. So I think Milwaukee is still in a good situation. And I think they've been thinking ahead and planning for the idea that Giannis would eventually be leaving. And from what I'm seeing, it looks like that they have been preparing for this moment for the longest of time. All right, Coach, how you feeling?
Feeling great.
You feeling better?
Feeling great.
All right,
so
good.
Well, we're both wearing Bears gear, so.
All right, Coach, let's get into this Caleb Williams topic. All right, a recent article just came out, and it spoke to some very disappointing things that, as a Bears fan, you probably wouldn't want to hear. It'd probably make you boo and get upset. And what has been said is that a couple things. One, that Caleb Williams did not want to be the Chicago Bears quarterback. He wanted to play for the Minnesota Vikings, which just tears at your heart and makes you go, I can't believe he actually wanted to be a Minnesota Viking. Like, out of every team in our division, you chose them. Cool. Then you compound that with the fact that there was more information provided that he didn't want to be a Chicago Bear so much that he was even trying to find ways to work around the NFL CBA, potentially put in a lawsuit to ensure that the Bears couldn't be the team that drafted him, as well as even gambling with the idea of playing in the UFL, despite playing in the UFL. Like, why would you want to do that? But didn't want to be a Chicago Bear so bad, according to this, that he was even contemplating missing the NFL completely, and just going to the UFL for 1 year. Compounded with that, there was information provided that a big reason why he didn't want to be a Chicago Bear was there was a lack of faith in the Bears coaching staff at the current time, and that the Chicago Bears franchise has a history of not having great quarterbacks. And for Caleb stepping into this situation, obviously him being the number one pick, him having all of this marketing and hoopla around him about him being a generational talent and all of that, it would put a fair amount of pressure on him to come in and showcase why there is so much buzz around him, as well as there being conversations about saying that during the course of the year, that when he received film, he was given no direction as to what to look at. Now, when it comes down to the film situation, I call BS on that. I think that that is another way to kind of scapegoat some of the poor performance that we got from him in comparison to quarterbacks that got drafted like Jaden Daniels and other guys who slowly became very important to their team as the season went on, like Bo Nix. And I think it's another way to just try to lessen the blow on what we feel, at least what I feel, was a very underperforming year from Caleb and the Chicago Bears from last season, when there was a fair amount of hype and expectation for them. I will say that I don't understand the whole film situation when in fact he's been a player playing football for the better part of his life, and I'm sure he has had to watch film before, especially with Lincoln Riley at USC. So I didn't understand this notion of the film and the coaches not telling him what to watch being a reasoning or a thing that was mentioned in the article as if it was supposed to be something that proved the ineptitude of the coaching staff of the Bears. My thing is, you have been a athlete all this time. You know what to look at on film as far as what defensive coverages that you didn't take advantage of, or what confused you, or your mistakes on the football field from the offensive side of the ball. Did you hit your check downs? Did you call the right line reads and different things like that? I'm sure when we're discussing the whole film situation, I guess the reference is to not necessarily when watching film at the facility, but when he would be at home and film would just be sent out, he wouldn't be given quote unquote direction on what to watch. I don't believe that the coaching staff was just so inept that they wasn't working with the quarterback room and sitting down and going through film with them, because if it was that way, I believe that other quarterbacks on the roster would also be sharing that the coaching staff never watched film with them at all throughout the course of the season, and I don't necessarily think it was the case. So I think that when they're referring to the film, it's more so film that was sent to him at home, and maybe he just wasn't given like a guideline or a rubric of what to watch and what to look out for, which to me, he shouldn't need that anyway as a professional athlete. So with that being said, what are your thoughts about this recent article that came out about Caleb Williams, and how do you see this playing itself out going forward?
Well, I mean, just to be more specific as far as like where these details are coming out of, it's because of a book that Seth Wickersham is releasing. It's called American Kings, a biography of the quarterback. So this is ESPN's preview of it, you can say.
Yeah.
It was a reporter at ESPN that ultimately did put out this article with this information. Now, do I think some of this information is very exaggerated? Yes, I do believe so. I feel like the whole conversation about Caleb possibly exploring going to the UFL and entering the NFL in 2025 as a free agent, I think that's a whole bunch of baloney. I don't think that holds any merit at all. I think this is just a reporter that just wanted to spice things up, get more clicks on his paper and whatnot. As far as the film goes, I could see the trouble that people have in believing that. All I have to say is this, this isn't a guy that is talking directly to media or talking to friends or anybody else outside of his immediate family about the situation. Caleb is talking directly to his father about what he's experiencing in Chicago. Carl Williams, I believe is Caleb Williams' dad's name. He said before, the draft even occurred, Carl Williams exactly said, Chicago is where quarterbacks go to die.
Yeah.
And nothing that he said was wrong. Nothing that Carl Williams said was wrong. You can't point to me at any point in history where Chicago has had a successful quarterback. So you can see why and understand why the reservations were had, especially considering the type of prospect Caleb Williams was coming out of college. One of the probably the most hyped college athlete coming out of college. Considering he's also the first guy to come out of college off of a what are the endorsement deals called again? NIL deals. He was the first year that they got to experience that. So, a lot of hype came around this kid, and I know Chicago Bears fans hurt hearing that he wanted to go to Minnesota, but I just say give him some amnesty, give him some grace, because he's not going to necessarily the franchise itself. He just wants to go be with Kevin O'Connell. You know what I mean? Just the way that Jaden Daniels is now married to Cliff Kingsbury. Bless you. Just the way that Bo Nix is married to Sean Payton. They've got great offensive masterminds. What did Caleb get married to? A defensive head coach that was already on the hot seat.
Yeah.
Going into that season, a offensive coordinator in Shane Waldron that had a very, very rough end to his stint in Seattle, and just notably Jackson Smith-Njigba, when he got interviewed by one of the Bears media outlets, laughed when the guys asked him about, what do you think of Shane Waldron? He laughed. He chuckled. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Nothing great about him.
He didn't have a long statement about it.
So I mean, that I think this is the important part, is that, like, I think there was a lot that did go wrong. As far as how much do I believe in the fact that they weren't watching film with him. I believe him to a certain extent because this is what he mentioned. He said they would just give me the film. I would just watch the film by myself. Or I'll pull up exactly what he said. He said exactly, no one tells me what to watch. I just turn it on. That's word for word verbatim what allegedly he told his father. So, I mean, how true is that? I don't know. But regardless, if we're going to hold it at face value and just believe in what he said, which honestly I don't think is far-fetched, just hearing from other guys within that offensive room, guys like DJ Moore that were disgruntled the whole year, guys like DeAndre Swift that couldn't even get multiple touches a game at the beginning of the season. It wasn't until later on in the year that they finally found some success for him, and that's because Thomas Brown came on after week 9. It was absolutely absurd what had gone on in that season, and you could see why Caleb had real big doubts in coming to Chicago. But what I think Bears fans need to take off of this article and be happy about, not necessarily be happy about, but remember about this article is the one thing that the young quarterback said before ultimately deciding that he's going to go to Chicago, like he's going to allow the Bears to pick him, is that he said he's not ready to just nuke the city. He believes he could win here in Chicago and he could be their quarterback. And I think that's something that Bears fans should not necessarily just be ecstatic about him saying that, but I think credit needs to go to Ryan Poles for convincing this man to come to a poorest quarterback franchise.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me it just goes like, I just hate this. I hate this reporting. I hate the fact that this article came out because, again, it just feels like it sets precedence for another. I mean, this could set the precedent for another season that isn't necessarily as great, and we're still waiting to have this conversation about the Bears' expectations, only because preseason hasn't started and we're still trying to figure out if there's going to be more free agents that's going to be added. Maybe Trey Hendrickson is somebody that we target as a trade, which I do believe they should do, because I still don't believe the other side of Montez Sweat has been solidified. I don't believe that they believe in the current, I guess, pass rushers that we have. I think they think that they're good, but they're not great. And I think Dennis Allen is looking for that anchor as a pass rusher that he can create this monstrous defensive line around.
I mean, Trey's the sack king.
And Trey is a sack king. So I think if you're the Chicago Bears and you're looking to solidify this defensive line, you should be going and trying to figure out what it would take to trade for Trey Hendrickson. We just officially signed Joe Thuney to I think it's a 3-year deal, two-year deal.
So it hits after this upcoming season.
So basically, it's like an extension, essentially, like a 2-year extension, which is basically along the lines of everything else Ryan Poles has been doing. Yeah. Everything has been about in alignment with Caleb Williams' current contract, right? Which lets you know what the Bears' thought process is. Winning a Super Bowl has to come during this time period of Caleb Williams being on
the next 3 years.
on his rookie deal.
Yeah.
They plan to be a team that is in the playoffs, competing and potentially being a Super Bowl berth team while Caleb is on his rookie deal, because as you can see in the NFL, once that rookie deal is over with and the quarterback is occupying 30% to 35% of your entire payroll and salary cap, it's hard to build a winning football team when the quarterback is making so much money. Now, will Caleb pull a situation where he becomes a Tom Brady and takes less money? Don't count on it.
I don't think so.
Don't count on it if you're a Chicago Bears fan. That kid is going to get every single penny, and probably more than penny.
Probably become the highest paid quarterback in history.
Yeah, in the history of the NFL when his contract time comes. I wouldn't be surprised and shocked if that happens, right? And don't be surprised if the whole contract is fully guaranteed. Mm-hmm. That it's not like, oh, the number says he's the highest projected. No, the entire thing will be guaranteed, especially if the Bears have any type of success. So for me, again, I don't like the reporting. It kind of gives off still sour about last year, still sour about expectations, still sour about not necessarily living up, quote unquote, to the hype, and we still have to put some things out there to say it wasn't me. It was everything else around me, and you guys are going to see this year. And I hope that's the case. I hope we see the Caleb Williams that he was hyped up to be. I'm not necessarily out on this kid. I make no, I don't backtrack on feeling that I wanted Jaden Daniels more than I wanted Caleb Williams. I will never backtrack on that. I wanted Jaden Daniels. That's who I think should have been our quarterback one. But I am not out on Caleb Williams as far as being able to see what he can become. And this season, like I said, we're waiting to have this conversation because I think it's going to be a very nuanced and passionate one when we finally get around to talking about what our expectations are. But this article is setting a precedent for we better see some good football this year.
Absolutely.
That's what this article that's what this article is setting up.
Yeah.
It's setting up a precedent to say, okay, we hearing all this noise.
Mm-hmm.
We're hearing all this chatter. It was the film. It was this. I didn't really want to be here. I wanted to be in Minnesota. Cool. You better go on that field and ball.
You got no excuse now.
You got no excuse. You better go on that field and ball, because if you don't, all we're going to be remembering in the back of our minds as Bears fans is you didn't want to be here. You wanted to be in Minnesota.
Yep.
And the boos will be louder than anything he's ever heard in his life.
Or any quarterback in the Bears history has fucking heard.
And I told a friend this in a group chat, and I said, the crazy thing about this situation for Caleb is that he needs to be careful. I don't know who his team is. I don't know why this reporting is happening. But he needs to be careful, because little do he may know, if it does not work in Chicago for him, there's a strong chance other teams may not want to deal with him either. Now, he's a special talent, so other teams will give him a shot.
Right.
But it may not be at the level of leverage that he has with the Chicago Bears. With the Chicago Bears, we are literally bending over backwards to make sure that this kid has every single possible thing necessary to be successful. From the running backs to the line to the receiving corps to the coaching staff, everything is being set up for him to be as successful as possible. And so if he can't become the quarterback that he was drafted to be, it's going to look like it's more him than it is the Chicago Bears. I will still say, though, if it doesn't work with Caleb, like we said before, if it doesn't work with Caleb, I don't know when we will ever have a quarterback.
Probably never.
Because it just shows that with the Caleb situation, we just don't know how to pick quarterbacks. Because if it doesn't work with him, then my argument of getting Jaden Daniels would just prove and show that we just don't know how to evaluate quarterbacks. Because we had the opportunity to get, quote unquote, good quarterbacks. Same thing with Mitchell Trubisky. We had a chance to get Patrick Mahomes, and we didn't.
Or Deshaun Watson.
Or Deshaun Watson at that time, and we didn't. We passed on them to get a guy from University of North Carolina.
But would you argue that, and just real quick before we move on, would you argue not necessarily just the evaluation of the quarterback, but the developmental process of the quarterback is also something Chicago has always struggled with and will never improve upon if Caleb Williams does not succeed here in Chicago?
I want to...
Because that's my argument. Like, yeah, the evaluation is one thing, but I think the developmental process is also something that's been greatly failed. I mean, maybe the most development we've seen was Mitch Trubisky, and that's when he was with Matt Nagy. Like, that's like the last competent offensive coach that we've had. Of course, he wasn't that long ago, but he's probably the only one in Bears history that has actually had a history of, okay, like there was improvement from year 1 to year 2. Year 2 to year 3 was questionable, but it was still somewhat improvement. You know what I mean? So that's my take.
I would say that you can't really have the development conversation until you pick the right guy. Like it's,
but I mean, like here it is again. Like I mean, here's my thing. Like even if you do take the right guy, if you can't develop him, it won't matter. It will not matter. Like sometimes players go to places where they will die. Like I think Jacksonville was another case of that. Like, is Trevor Lawrence really that bad, or can they just not develop a quarterback?
I mean, my argument would be that Trevor Lawrence is just another one of those situations where he's not as good as we thought he was going to be. I see when I think of development, I think of raw potential.
But then you also look at franchises like Tom Brady being taken in the 7th round. Bro barely played any college football, goes to New England, they develop him like crazy, ends up being the best quarterback of all time.
Was he developed by New England, or did he just work his butt off?
It's both, though, because you need to have a competent quarterback that could actually work on his game himself, but you also need that equal force of an actual competent coaching staff that could develop the kid. He had stabilization with Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniel, right? That's his name.
Well, see, I think the thing with New England and Tom Brady, for me, it's just more so Tom Brady worked at his game. If we look at the timeline of Tom Brady, the Tom Brady that we know today that most people refer to when they talk about Tom is the Tom that's able to throw 5,000 yards, all these touchdowns, and blah blah blah. But the original Tom Brady that existed in New England was a very high IQ game manager. He wasn't throwing the ball all over the field. He wasn't he wasn't having high touchdown numbers and high yard completions and stuff like that. He was just a guy that was smart enough to know when to get the football out, and he didn't get a lot of turnovers. And plus, New England had a stout defense and run game. That was at the beginning of his career. Now, the quarterback that we know today is the Tom Brady that throws the ball all over the field and can beat you with his arm and stuff like that. But he developed into that. Am I giving New England credit for the development of Tom Brady turning into the quarterback that can just literally beat you with his arm? That's debatable.
To a certain extent, you have to, though, you know?
I guess so. I guess I don't want to just discredit New England and say that they didn't provide that. So, yeah, I guess I got to give them some credit for that. Do I give more credit to Tom Brady than New England? Yes.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
So, I guess that's what I'm saying by, like, when we talk about development, for me, it's just, like, raw potential. A great development story would be Anthony Richardson. That would be the guy, the quarterback that I would say, if you turn him into a NFL starting caliber quarterback, then you have a hell of a development staff with the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah.
Because he has all the raw potential and intangibles to be great, but there's just certain things that need to be molded and taught and kind of refined and fine-tuned for him to become that starting level quarterback. So I think that's what I mean by, like, when I want to give the organization that development card, it's like a quarterback like Anthony Richardson turning into something that we go, okay.
I agree with you. Let's table this conversation because this is actually a really good one that we could bring up at some point on the Patreon or in its own episode. But let's move on to the last portion of the show, the halftime prediction.
Yes. All right. Nice little theme music that we got going right there. Make you want to bob your head and catch a vibe real quick. When we don't have all day to bob your head and catch a vibe, we got a show to do, baby.
Yes, sir.
So,
let's wrap this thing up, man.
The conference finals are here for the East and the West of the NBA. We have the Oklahoma City Thunder going against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and we have the Indiana Pacers going against the Knicks. The question on the table, Coach, is who wins these respective conferences and makes their way to the NBA Finals for a chance to be the NBA World Champions.
I'll be short and sweet with it.
Yeah.
OKC in 7. New York in 6.
Wow. You got a New York and OKC Finals.
I do.
Now, are you picking New York because when we was talking about the New York and Boston series, your heart of hearts you wanted to pick New York, but you picked Boston. So I think now, are you just trying to double down on your heart of hearts and say, I'm going to go with it this time and say New York is going to be Indiana, or do you truly think New York has a chance to be Indiana?
It is both to a certain extent because I do want to double down on my take with New York because I do feel like they are one of the best constructed teams in the NBA, and they have one of the best coaches in the NBA.
Yes, they do.
Which usually is a pretty good combination, and we've shown that to be to come to fruition.
It is definitely one of the halftime formulas for success.
Absolutely, yeah, good mention there. But I do think each and every game of that series will be close. Like, I do not think it's going to be a cakewalk for New York. I just think they're such a clutch team. Like, I think they're going to keep it close throughout, or even if they go down, like, they've shown the capability against Boston out of all teams to come back down 20 and win the basketball game. Like, that is a hard thing to do in the NBA, especially in the playoffs against the defending champions. Like, it's unheard of to see this type of team do that, and New York has done that. Let's see if they can continue against Indiana. That's my gut type of vibe I'm getting from them, but also just being reasonable and just kind of evaluating both of the teams. I just think New York matches up so well with Indiana. Like, I just think that they will be able to keep up with the pace. I did mention earlier that my only question with New York is, will they be fatigued? And maybe that's a reason they won't be able to keep up. But as far as the matchups on the floor, they will be able to defend very well.
Okay.
They'll rebound the ball very well.
Okay.
And I think it's just a great matchup for New York. And I don't see why they wouldn't be able to win this in 6. Do I see it going 7? I could see it going 7, but I don't have this going in 5 or 4. Like, it's definitely a 6 or 7 game series, but I do have New York in that one. Just to go to to OKC, just real quick. Why I say 7? I think this is another series that's going to end up very tight. I think, just to put matchups into perspective, and just how game 1 went, we're not going to see another game from Anthony Edwards like that. We're not going to see just an 18-point game, inefficient, turning the ball over, and all of those things. We're not going to see a Minnesota team that relies on Julius Randle for their points. We're going to see Anthony Edwards, I think, blossom and be the superstar that he is, and Julius Randle be that second scoring option, putting up another 20 points. That's where Minnesota can be dangerous in this series. That's why I think in their home games, they win both of their home games, including OKC wins their home games. Like, I just think no team is going to win on the road this series. I think both of those environments are very tough environments to play in.
Okay.
And I do have just both teams winning all of their home games, which OKC being the higher seed, they'll get ultimately 4 home games instead of just 3. So that's why I have it going to 7.
Okay. I could not disagree more. I have OKC. Let me start off with the West, because I think that one is interesting. OKC in 5. The reason why I have OKC in 5 is because I think Minnesota does not have the offensive firepower to keep up with OKC. And I think you will continue to see what you saw in game 1 from Anthony Edwards continue to be for the rest of the series.
Not no scoring power. Weren't they the number 1 scoring team in the league this season?
Who?
The Minnesota Timberwolves?
I think that was OKC.
No, it was the Timberwolves.
Well, they ain't looking like it in the playoffs.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair.
And they aren't, and the Thunder are amongst the best defensive team in the NBA.
Very
and they
true.
might be, I think they are either number 1 or like at least top 3.
They're up there, yeah.
So I think what you're going to see from OKC is similar to what they did to Jokic. And if you can do what you did against Jokic and make it hard for him to be the Jokic that has been able to dominate series after series, you can do that to Anthony Edwards. He ain't Jokic. And so I think the thing about the Oklahoma City Thunder that works to their advantage is that Anthony Edwards is a guard. And what does OKC have plenty of? Great wing defending guards. Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, even Isaiah Joe at times can really get into your face and do certain things. And then J-Dub will get down and get into his stance as well. So I think that actually helps OKC going against Minnesota, is that their best player is a guard rather than a big man. Rudy Gobert is going to be limited to being able to do what he did against Golden State, because unlike Steve Kerr and not playing Quentin Post, Chet Holmgren can shoot the basketball and he will be on the floor, which means Rudy Gobert will be away from the basket, which means that there's going to be
they're going to match him up with Hartenstein.
Okay, that's fine. Hartenstein can shoot too.
Yeah,
he can shoot out. He can shoot the 3 a little bit. He can shoot the 3 a little bit. I'm not saying like it's like Chet Holmgren shooting the 3.
That's what I mean.
Well, I mean, even if he's matched up with Hardenstein can move away from the basket enough to keep Rudy Gobert from being this complete presence.
Yeah, but he
down
could
low.
play a lot more drop coverage against Hardenstein.
Yeah, that's true. But I still think that there is going to be levels. There's going to be moments in which Rudy Gobert will be switched on to Chet, and he's going to be in situations where Chet is on the perimeter and Rudy Gobert is on the perimeter as well. But nevertheless, I think that the defensive stoutness of the Oklahoma City Thunder and their ability to put Anthony Edwards in a situation where he has to become a passer is going to be the model for how Minnesota goes down in 5, because I do think Julius Randle will have to be the number one leading scorer, and he will be the one that has to be Oklahoma City Thunder, because I don't think Oklahoma City is going to allow Anthony Edwards to do the things that he did against Golden State unless Anthony Edwards becomes a big-time three-point shooter out of nowhere in this series, which he has the capability of doing. Unless that happens, he's not going to be able to get to the basket at free will like he was doing against Golden State at times. This Oklahoma City Thunder team moves, they rotate, they stay in front of you, and even when they don't stay in front of you, they have multiple guards that switch well and they cover and get up on you. So I don't think this is going to be the series that people anticipate. I think people thought that this would be a 7-game series, Ant-Man versus Shea. I think people are going to be highly disappointed at how quickly this is going to go down and be over with. Same thing for the other side. I got Indiana in 5.
All right.
The reason why I have Indiana in 5, because similar to Minnesota, New York, I don't think they can keep up with the scoring and the three-point shooting of Indiana, as well as the pace in which Indiana plays is going to wear down on the New York Knicks very, very fast, especially because Tom Thibodeau only plays 6 people. Now, that's not an exaggeration. I was going to say it's an exaggeration,
right,
but it's kind of on par. He does really only play like 6 people and max 7. So when you're playing a limited amount of people on your roster and they're having to run up and down with this fast-paced Indiana offense, I don't see that lasting long and lasting well for the New York Knicks. And don't be surprised if a player like, and I'm not trying to say this, but at the pace in which the Indiana Pacers play, don't be surprised if a player like Jalen Brunson gets hurt, because they're just moving way too fast, and he's been dealing with injury after injury from every single round. Same thing with Anthony Edwards. This ankle is becoming more and more tender, and he's one really bad ankle roll from being out for the conference finals, because yesterday was a scare. He had a scare against Golden State. So I don't know but with Indiana and New York, I got Indiana in 5 because I don't think New York can keep up with their scoring pace, and I don't think they can keep up with their offensive pace, especially when you're not playing enough players from the New York side that won't get fatigued, won't get tired, won't get overplayed, and you have to keep up with this pace for the entirety of 7 games. I don't see New York doing it. Now, I think the only way that Minnesota and New York have a chance is if they get very, 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 very physical. Very physical. They're going to have to slow this thing down, slow OKC down, slow Indiana down, and that is the way Minnesota and New York will have a fighting chance. As we spoke about earlier with Shea getting to the free throw line, if the whistle gets swallowed, then Minnesota can be very physical, and that will allow them a chance to have a shot at beating OKC. But if that whistle is getting used the way that it has been throughout the course of the regular season and the playoffs when it comes down to refereeing Shea, Minnesota is going to have a hard time being physical. Same thing with New York. If the referees are being soft with the whistle and calling a lot of calls and doing things like that, it's going to be a long time and a hard day for the New York Knicks to be physical with the Indiana Pacers, which is something that they're going to have to do in order to slow them down from making it a track meet in the open floor and in transition. No. So I got Indy in 5. I got OKC in 5. And for the first time in history, not first time in history, but we're going to see the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers in the NBA Finals. It'll be Halliburton versus Shea, the battle of the point guard of the future, and you're going to get a very exciting finals because you got 2 teams that play hard-nosed defense and simultaneously play very fast up and down the floor.
All right.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't hate it, but I think I'm right. Of course, I think I'm right.
So you got OKC versus
I got OKC in
New York.
7, and I got New York in 6.
So you got an OKC and New York finals. Boy, would New York fans are gonna be happy with you. They're gonna love you. They're gonna hate me. But for me, I got Indiana and the Oklahoma City Thunder making it to the finals. All right. That has been the halftime predictions. And as well, we want to remind you guys to follow and subscribe to our YouTube channel at the Halftime Pod. Make sure you're clicking that subscribe button. Make sure you are sharing our content. Tell your friends about us. Tell your loved ones, tell your partners, tell the world about the Halftime Podcast, which is the best sports coverage on all digital platforms, as well as follow me at Coach M_Got It and follow Coach at Coach_KD41. We want to remind everybody that's watching, please send in or DM us about any art, pictures, murals, paintings, or anything that you would like to see added to our backdrop, because we would love to rotate pictures and different things like that, especially if it's coming from any of our fans, and we would love to just shout you out and give you some light on how dope your art or pictures and whatever you got going on, how dope it is. So please DM us about that, and we would love to talk about being able to get pieces of your work here on the wall behind us, especially if it's sports related or if it's just something really, really, really dope. Anything you want to add, Coach?
Man, just as always, appreciate everybody for tuning in, especially on the YouTube Reels. We're getting a lot more views on there, and the TikTok as well. It's been a pleasure to continue to do this and be able to do this. Always a blessing to be able to appreciate you, Coach, for staying tuned in and continuing the show with me. And it's looking bright. We got bright days ahead of us, man.
Absolutely. What episode is this?
This is episode 34, Coach.
Episode 34. Man, we've been rocking and rolling.
We've been at it, man.
We've been rocking and rolling. All right. As you know how we end the show every time, I'm Coach Malcolm.
And I'm Coach Conrad.
And as always, you know how it goes. See red and bear down, baby. Yeah.